Looking to create wealth and income through high cash flowing real estate? Self-storage is the fastest growing and the newest real estate asset that has outperformed all others. What's its secret? I'm AJ Osborne, and with over 1 million square feet that we have built, acquired, expanded, and even converted big box stores from small third-tier markets to large 100,000+ square foot facilities, we have seen it all. This is the podcast that we're going to discuss and bring on the best investors and operators in the nation to show you how to create wealth and income with self-storage. Welcome to Self-Storage Income.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Self-Storage Income Podcast. Today, we've got Kelly and Brian, and I'm super excited to jump into this because, I could not give you a better example of somebody just figuring it out, putting every little building block in place that they need to build literally, it's so funny. I'm saying this figuratively, but they did it literally. I mean, they literally built their own facilities, different things like that. It's such an amazing story of what they've done, how they've structured building their self-storage portfolio, what they're doing, where they're going, all of that stuff. But before we do that, before you guys jump into this episode, Kelly, Brian were just incredible people. Super lucky to have them on the podcast and get to know them a little bit here today, which was really, really exciting. But before we get into any of that, I wanted to give you a huge shout out to Live Oak Bank and Janus International. Janus International has amazing opportunities for everybody that are in the self-storage realm that are either acquiring or you're building, whatever it is. They've got solutions for you guys to bring your old facilities up to today's standards, or if you want to just build a facility, they've got really, really awesome solutions and products and materials for you guys to utilize. They've got proprietary door systems and patented door systems, things like that work a lot better than other door systems as far as longevity and how those mechanisms operate within doors. If you've operated a storage facility for any period of time, you know that doors can be a massive issue and a huge cost. And Janus International Solutions, as far as doors, they've got a really great product, really helps out with so many of those common issues that you run into with those doors. And of course, Janus has the no-key solution for self-storage owner-operators as well that helps bring the consumer experience up to today's standards as well. So not only can you update your curb appeal, get in some really great materials and be, having this Class A looking facility, you can also have a Class A user experience and consumer experience where somebody can just rent a unit, access the facility, put their stuff in storage, and leave the facility without ever interacting with a manager if they so choose. And Janus International's no-key system allows people to do that. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Links in the show notes. I also want to give a huge shout out to Live Oak Bank, which has just been an incredible resource for us and for other storage owner operators. It's amazing to hear all of the people that are reaching out to Live Oak, like, hey, we heard you guys on the Self-Storage Income Podcast. It's so cool for us to be able to hear that, where a lot of times I feel like people think that, they throw their ads out there or whatever it is, or their sponsors, and, if somebody goes to them, cool, whatever. But for us, this is such a different dynamic because we've specifically chosen Live Oak to be a part of this podcast and a part of the Self-Storage Income brand, essentially. And we have the utmost confidence in them and their abilities, and we're honored to have them a part of all of this that we're doing and to be able to pass that on to you guys as a resource as well. And we hear it from our listeners. We even had guests on that have used Live Oak Bank and their SBA programs to get into storage. So if you guys are looking at financing, talk to Live Oak, talk to Terry over there at Live Oak Bank, get it, everybody over there. Again, decades of experience there as well. Tons of really, really great people. Links in the show notes. Go check out Live Oak. Go check out Janus. With that said, guys, here's Kelly and Brian. Enjoy this episode. And I'm super excited. Here we go.
Welcome, everybody, to Self-Storage Income. And I am so excited about today's podcast because we have some fellow Northern Rockies friends. This is what it's all about. From the other side of the Rockies from us, over in Montana, and storage people around us. That absolutely warms my heart. So I'm excited about that.
Me as well. Excited to jump into this one and share the story with you guys and what they've got going on, what they're doing, how they got to where they're at now. And it's just been awesome having all these amazing guests on lately that have such great stories, and excited to jump into this one. So we've got Kelly and Brian hanging out with us today. Thank you guys for coming on. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So, yeah, just to jump into everything, give everybody kind of a rundown of who you are and what you guys are doing.
So we got started kind of slowly. Let's see, what year did we get started? '06. We purchased some property that we actually didn't really intend on putting storage units on. We needed it for Brian's shop. He was going to need it for building cabinets and countertops when the market was so good for that then. And we purchased the property for that purpose, and then it was a couple of acres, so we needed to figure out what else to do with that property that happened to be on a fairly busy highway. So it was Brian's idea to put some storage units on it, and then kind of go into what we built and how we got started.
We built our first building. We thought that boat and RV would be good for our area because we have lakes up in here. So we built 12 by 36 storage units was the size. And it was just, we built 12 of them, just a single building. Didn't even know if they would rent. We just kind of thought. It
scared us.
Yeah, scared us. That small venture scared us. But most of them were rented before we finished them.
Yeah. And so we're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that kind of opened our eyes to the possibilities kind of there. And so we built the property was kind of a pie shape. So the narrow end of it, we built some small ones, some 10 by 15s, 15 more units there. And then
so you went more traditional because it kind of started out on that boat and RV side, and then from there moved to a traditional portion of it.
Yeah,
Right.
and mostly just because that's all that would fit on that narrow part.
Yeah.
So we were just kind of maximizing the property there. And then the market crashed, and I kind of lost most of my income doing cabinets and countertops. So we actually went back to school, and I went to pharmacy school for 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
It stalled us a little bit.
Yeah, no kidding.
So the beauty of the storage units was I could work part-time, he could work part-time. The facility made it so that we could get a loan, so we could have a home in Idaho Falls where we were living. And so it floated us during those years. Just that little bit of passive income kept us going in those years where it would have been very difficult. We have 5 children, and that would have been extremely difficult to get through that period of him being in school without that passive income. So we very much appreciated having that, and we're glad that we stuck our neck out when we did.
So you were an IF?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so you know Hit Storage on Hit Road?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so right off Hit Road exit, that Hit Storage. That was ours, one of our first.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So we're
Small world.
right on the corner of 17th and Hit Road. Is that the one?
So it's right before the exit. So hit exit right before you get to it.
Oh.
Yeah, it has like those
Oh,
RV like on the backside.
Yeah.
It's small, right? But it was that was one of our very first storage facilities.
Awesome.
Hey Jay, I have one question. Was it a hit?
You know what? It was actually probably not the hit we wanted it to be. So, but it is funny because that storage facility is what got us into management. So like we'd hired a property management, and there was nobody that did property management for storage, right? And this was this was right after or 2005. So this was 2005, and we gave it to the property man. We didn't know what we were doing, so gave it to the property management company. It was like 6 months later, we were at like 60% occupancy, and rates were low. We go over there, the gate's not working. We're like, what is going on? So we took it over, and we learned how to manage it by necessity. Like it was never a plan to, but that's, kind of how we started on Little Hit Road. So how long were you in IF?
So 6 years. Yeah.
Okay.
I went, So 2 years of undergraduate and then 4 years of pharmacy school. I would commute down to Pocatello
Okay. Yep.
for pharmacy school.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Oregon for a couple of years after that. I guess in pharmacy school, in one of the summers, we came up and built another building.
On the same property.
18 on the same property,
Right.
built another 18 units there. And same thing, we really didn't have a good
Big vision,
plan or
yeah.
big vision for it. We just thought, well, if we can build it and rent half of them, the other half will be gravy.
And this is him building them with our kids. This
Yeah,
is not
so-
us hiring people
Oh,
to build
wow.
it. We're very
Wait, so you
yeah,
guys,
so me and my 10 and 12-year-old boys are putting storage units together.
They're really good at it now.
Yeah, they are.
Now wait, hold on. So you were doing this when you were in Oregon. You were driving up there to build yourself storage units.
Well, this was when we were in Idaho still, so it was in
So you were in
between-
IF and you were driving up all the way up there.
Yeah, so we camped out in the shop, had our own little hot plate, and we'd hang out in the shop in the evenings and watch Bonanza, and then we'd do storage units during the day.
that's like the
Oh,
coolest thing
that's
I've ever heard.
So awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
it's
managed them remotely too. It was
Okay.
really sketchy, but I managed to do it.
Yeah, we
And-
didn't have a website.
Yeah, this is before we had
Yeah.
any kind of system online. It was all
Hmm.
paper, and my father-in-law going over and checking to see if something was empty and clean. So.
Well, and to give
I thought
you talk
we
about
kind of
remote
initially-
management. You're talking about remote management here, but you got to give everybody a little perspective. Like we say Idaho and Montana because they're like on the side of each other, right? We're neighbors.
Yeah.
But
6 hours.
But they're not close what they're talking about here. You're talking northern Idaho and northern Montana and southern Idaho, really far away. So you were driving. This is a big thing to be managing remote like this, first of all, but then to be building it while you live 6 hours away. That is so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
We initially thought that we would, of course, have to sell these if we were going to live 6 hours away. Luckily, it didn't really go anywhere. Nobody was buying anything. So out of necessity, I just kept managing them, and it seemed to work. And so then we gave up the idea, of course, that we wouldn't, we're never selling these things now. We figured it out,
Yeah.
thankfully.
Yeah.
So,
It sounds
yeah.
like our story
So-
too.
right. You just
Yeah.
have to keep plugging along. Yeah.
And that you did this
So
for
I guess
6
at that
years.
point- 6 years.
6 years, and then
Two more.
I graduated, took a job in Salem or near Salem, Oregon, at a pharmacy there.
Realized he doesn't like it at all.
Yeah, I realized that pharmacy was maybe not the best choice for me.
We had it all. We had a very nice home. He had a job. I stopped with the 3 jobs I had going on in Idaho Falls, and we just like chilled out and found that we were bored to death. This was not what we wanted, actually, we figured out. And so 2 years after moving there, we decided, let's go back to Montana. We can continue with what we started there. And we thought we'll be much happier. And so far that's been the case. We've grown a lot since, I guess we've been back in Montana for 4 years now. And a lot of growth has happened in those 4 years.
Mhm.
Yes.
And so
We
you went
went-
back and started in storage? So you went back
So-
and were like, I'm going to build another one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we moved from Oregon back to Montana the last time, then we built another set of units and then made plans for 2 more buildings to finish out that property. And then right across the highway, a property came available, and we partnered with our
Brother-in-law.
brother-in-law and purchased that property and started developing that, cut all the trees and got all the zoning and permitting and stuff. And so we've developed that, finished developing ours, and we're just now finishing the very last building on those 2 projects.
Like today, he was putting up metal today.
Okay, so
That's
yeah.
incredible.
I want to ask you, we're talking here about this facility and everything. How are you financing this, like getting started? You buy it with your brother, is it just your savings and then you're you're doing the actual building, like you're going out and buying the material and building?
Yeah,
Initially,
so
to start house.
initially, when the market was really good, we were building a house, living in it for 2 years, and then selling it. We were flipping houses.
Yeah.
And so that first flip we did, we sold it in 07, and we had a HELOC on that we financed all the property for the storage unit and those first couple of units or buildings. So that when we sold that first spec house, or the house we were intending to sell, it paid for that whole first phase. And then since then, we've been positive equity. So we've been able to just refinance every building and just keep rolling it, because we're always good loan to value.
We have a great local lender. Very good relationship with a local lender.
Who do you guys use?
And then,
do you mind me asking?
Glacier Bank.
Oh, okay. Yep.
They have subsidiaries in Idaho, and you probably know.
Yeah, we worked with them before.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then when we branched out to the second property and brought in our partner, so our brother-in-law, he's well established financially and stuff. So he would bring cash to the deal, and I would build them, and then we would finance the difference. So he would bring all the down payments to the deal, and then I would do sweat equity.
Yeah.
To roll those ones.
So since we had that going for us, we started looking around for other properties that we might be able to purchase, and found one just within 5 minutes of our place. And somebody that a fellow facility owner that I had talked to before, and so we were very interested in that property, and we closed on that in December of 2020 and added 110 units at that point. And the interesting thing about continuing to grow like that 2 years ago was when I added our online system, because up to that point it was like book, very labor intensive to keep track of all that. And, I maybe charged late fees every now and then. It was, I just couldn't keep up with that kind of a system. And I always avoided the smaller units because they were more trouble than the larger ones with boats and RVs in them. And so because we were able to do that, then I felt comfortable going ahead and expanding and getting bigger. And so that was a big step for us to go ahead and get into that.
Now, how did that change your financials? Did you improve on collections?
I don't know that we've
collections.
quantified it, but I think we get a considerable amount now in late fees.
Did delinquencies lower?
We haven't had real high delinquencies, just because we do have a majority of large units.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty affluent community here. So there's some nice stuff in there. Most of them are on auto pay.
Yeah.
Most of them, we have some people that have almost 10 units, and they pay the whole year in advance on the same date every year.
So you had it set up right. It was just the administrative part that the technology just streamlined.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
That makes complete sense. And so you have two across the road from each other. You're going down now to just down the road, correct? And there's like 110 more units that you already have a relationship. Now, how did that acquisition go? Like, how was that negotiation process with them, and is in the terms of price? Like, what was those conversations like, and how did you come to an agreeable price? I'm always interested to hear how that goes.
Yeah, we probably messed up just a little bit because we've known this guy forever.
Yeah.
And
we read your book just like a month too late, I swear.
Dang.
Kelly's a real estate agent, and so she has access to the MLS, and so we're constantly looking through there. But had we just chatted with him 6 months earlier,
it kills us now to think about.
We probably could have got it off market. So by the time it got on market, we probably paid just a little more than we would have otherwise.
Yeah.
But it's a really neat piece of property in that it's storage units on a couple of the acres, and it's got an enormous shop
that we immediately rented for $1,500 a month.
Yeah, to a woodworker.
Yeah.
And then it's got a beautiful yard and another piece of property that's separate that has a mobile home on it right now, but it's 2 acres with the mobile home. So there's tons of potential to
Yeah, we got plans for all that.
develop, maybe put a duplex on that and then a house near the shop. And so some future development. So we were willing to pay a little bit more perhaps just because of the situation. And it's 2 miles down the road and right next door to my dad. So it's like,
that's it. Yeah, no kidding. That it's amazing. We're acquiring a lot of facilities in certain areas, and the ability to operationally increase overall is a real thing. Like having close proximity in the terms of marketing, sharing customer space, moving one customer to another, say, well, I don't have any of this facility here, I've got that. Right. You capture a lot of income. And 2, also, you can then turn around and sell it. It's way more interesting to a lot more people because now you have options. They're all here. We all have them similar. I can either farm each one of them out, sell them individually, or sell them to somebody big, right? And maybe get a lower cap rate, like a portfolio value. So I understand, like, when you're paying a little more for assets, there's more reasons that might go into it. For example, like you talked about, immediately when you say land has intrinsic value, right? Especially in the marketplace. So if you look at the market, land may trade for certain things. Well, we bought a facility a few months ago that had a whole nother acre, right? But we're buying it on the cap rate, and the revenue based upon it has nothing to do with that land. Well, that doesn't mean that land's not revenue producing. It's just they're not doing revenue producing, right? So even if I paid a little more for it, if you look in comparison to what I'd have to pay for that and carve it all out, the land, the shop, all individually, right? That can really, all of a sudden you're going, actually, I got a big discount on this.
Yeah. Well, and listening to some of your podcasts has given us the courage to do some of the things that we were nervous about doing, because our rates at our 2 facilities were at market value or close to, but he was way below market value. And we were really nervous. Like one of them, he was charging $75 a month on this unit, and market value is about $125.
Wow.
And so we're nervous about just the exodus of people when we raise the rent. and listening to you and some of your strategies made us more comfortable and going ahead and just pulling the Band-Aid off and doing it.
Probably one of our biggest takeaways was that 100% occupancy is not always a good thing. We always thought, 100%, great. Yep. And then it was like, what are we doing? It's much better to be charging the proper amount and have a little bit of a couple of empty units than to be charging the wrong amount,
100%. We tell our managers, and like I say, they are like, why, you're raising price, we could fill up more. Hey, listen, you guys got to understand, we are a business. I got to have something to sell. If I have nothing to sell, my business is theoretically not maximized, right? It's like we're sitting around, we don't even have to. I'm like, I never want all the units gone, because there's not the same paying tenants as, you're in a affluent area. So you're going to have some tenants that are willing to pay much higher rates and not even use your facility, right? They're going to come in from out of town and they're going to use their RV once, and then they're going to park it back, and they don't even care what the price is. Well, if I have a tenant that is really price sensitive, and they almost always cause all the problems, right? In a unit at $75, I'm turning away all these $150 ones that are not price sensitive and are totally, so it's like, who do we want to get? So you got to get rid of those other people and say, this is who we are, and bring those. It's a big opportunity cost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So our whole thinking on that is completely changed after.
How'd the rent raises go?
We started with one type of unit. There, our biggest RV unit at the newest property, and we only a couple people moved out. Everybody else has been able to bump up with us on price, and then I immediately filled back up. So just test it a little bit, and you'll find out where you're at.
Yeah. And 2, you guys acquired this at a very good time, right? So it's now the money time. And I can tell you this, me and Lance were having this conversation a lot. And Lance Watkins, who's a partner of mine, he owns and developed a bunch of facilities through California. During the downturn, right? They got nervous, so they started lowering rates, and they stopped doing rate increases. And he always says, you know, he's like, I'm not a person that looks back and say change anything, but he goes, that was the biggest mistake we ever made. Because when he went to other facilities, they kept raising their rates. They never stopped, right? Well, all of a sudden, he's 3 years behind, and their financial performance is way better than his. And he's like, and we were in the middle of a recession. What he found out was there was no difference between his and theirs, and they were raising rents all the time. And I think the thing that we think about, and I have to change my mind about it, particularly when times are good, that's the time you can get it. When the bad times come, it's harder to get it, right, and to fill up. But if you get it during the good times, they stay with you through the bad. They don't leave, right?
Yeah.
So it's like there's a time when it's hot and a time to really do it and push the limits, because you might not be able to do it next spring, right? And if you don't do it like that, rip that Band-Aid off, if you're like, oh, I'm going to do it in 4 increments, you don't know if the last 2 increments you can even get. So for us, we're like, let's meet the demand, meet it now. And we adjust later, because, man, it can cost you a lot of money if you don't.
For sure.
Right.
Well, and ours is so seasonal too. Like summers are hot here. Like we get a total influx of tourism and people that just have summer homes here and stuff. And so it's busy in the summertime. And like you were talking about, I plow the thing all winter and nobody ever sees it. Nobody ever sees it. I've done
Yep.
There's nobody even visiting their boat in the wintertime.
Yeah.
You know, we used to have that in Coeur d'Alene. So in Coeur d'Alene, which is just across the way from where you guys are, we used to have this time period during the winter. We would see a lot of seasonal move in and out, right? Same thing. It's a high-end lake community. You got the resort there. And we would have large fluctuations in our occupancy. And it was interesting when looking at, because same thing, during the winter, it died. It was just nobody there. It was always good if the resort put on a Christmas event or something, right? But other than that, the town was dead. It was dark at 3 o'clock. Nobody's there. Then summertime came around, and we didn't have units to even give out. And we looked at this. We're like, how do we offset the seasonality, right? And you guys may not have it. That was at one of our facilities in the market. Depending on the location of the market, the other one, there was a lot more people that had second homes. They continued renting them whether they were there or not, which was really nice. Yeah. And that's what we learned. We learned that different tenants utilize storage differently, and we had to be really picky about, and we got rid of the fluctuation. So we have no seasonality in our occupancy that is any different than any other facility now. But it took us a few years to figure that out. And when I'm talking about, like, we would go from 80 to 99% in 6 months. It was massive. And then we had another facility that would have never dropped below 93. We're like, man. And so we really had to change the way we marketed. We identified those areas that had more steady living people there or larger, nice home. And we got rid of the marketing towards certain like apartment complexes, things like that, that we knew were seasonal workers coming in and out. And it's really interesting how you can maximize those trends and to offset, some of those different problems within your facilities. And that's the thing that I love about storage. People, I think they think that month-to-month contract is an Achilles heel. Oh, I completely disagree. I'm like, that's what gives us power. Your ability to raise rents like you just did and fill up. There's so few asset classes that would allow you to even be able to do it like that.
Yeah. And the longer you have them, the more you filter out the kind of
problem children.
And you get your solid tenants who stay year after year. I've had people with us since the day we opened. Still, we've got the same folks.
So you're building, you're managing. Talk to us about management. Tell us some tips and tricks here. Give our listeners, you're getting into it. You've had these things for years. You've learned as you went away. What are some things that you wish on your management side, running these assets, that you would have started from day one?
I wish I was a little meaner to start with. I guess it's lack of a better word. I kind of got a little bit of a thicker skin as I went along and was able to get a little bit better at judging who might be a good fit and who might not be. At the same time, I became a lot better at public relations and being friendlier and more pleasant on the phone, because for a long time it was always like, no, we're full, you know. But I kind of had to change that attitude and realize that I was there to provide a service, and so I tried to become a little more professional in that manner. I always answer the phone. People love that. So
that's huge.
They always know that they can get a hold of me if they have a problem. So a lot of our clientele are older and they can't just deal with whatever they need to by logging into their account. And so I have to provide that service here where we live and where we work. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, all great stuff. And then too, because this is like right up my alley on my side of things, I want to touch on like the building and development side. Like, how are you structuring that, Brian? Like, what is your process? Like, are you getting designs done by an architect, or are you coming up with designs? Like, what is your process for actually building these on your own? I'm super curious how you're getting these things done. It's awesome.
Yeah. So I have a background in construction, both in residential construction and then doing cabinets and countertops. And so I kind of am familiar with the trades and stuff. And so the development of the property was kind of a fun thing for me to lay out all the buildings on the property with the setbacks and try to maximize flow and all that stuff. It was just kind of fun to do. And then early on, the very first building, and I don't know if you guys let us name drop or do anything like that, but it's okay. So it's Heritage Building Supplies in Georgia. Yeah. And it's the same guy I call every time, Chris Akers, and I call him and he picks up the phone.
Yeah, 15 years with Chris.
Yeah, and initially it was fax and back and forth stuff and signing. But we've used them for every one of our buildings, and so I'll just say, hey, this is my footprint. This is the size building I can fit right here. Tell him I want it single-sided, double-sided, tell him what I want, and he'll draw it up and send me a quote. So that's been the easy part. The state and county permitting is probably the part that would scare most people away from the process.
Which, to keep it in perspective, in where we live, the red tape is very thin. There's very little red tape. The first property that we built on was unzoned. We didn't have any issues there. And it just irritates him to have to answer to anybody about how he deals with it.
No, like on all of our projects, we're like least for sure, least amount of interaction with cities, anything else we can do. Yeah, perfect, great, let's do that.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
But it's just dealing with the state, getting all of the ducks in a row, and then having good relationship. I've got a concrete contractor local here that has done the majority of the slabs for me, a local engineer that designs the foundations for me, and then Heritage Building Supply engineers and designs the steel buildings. So yeah, it's been real
a satisfying thing to
work
on.
I mean, I enjoy delivery day when the semi shows up and go out there with the forklift and offload them, and it's just kind of fun to get back to dealing with the machine rather than a person. So I like it.
Yeah. And I love the way that you guys have done all of this, from like the leveraging, like using your HELOC, and how you've done like the management and how you like the building and everything. It's like you guys are just seriously like leveraging and maximizing everything that you can possibly do to make these things work, and I just love how you guys are putting this together.
Lose the job, got to go get a new career, then you got to go to college. I mean, it's great, and
so cool.
Know, when I look at it too, before I even get to that, I had another question I can't forget I wanted to ask you. You mentioned at the first, Don, you're refinancing. Were you financing each building individually? So when you built the first section, so you're doing it in phases, did you finance them individually? Then did you tie them all into one, or are they still individually financed?
No, so we would refinance, roll the existing loan into a new loan to bring in the new building.
Use that equity.
Use that equity as a down payment. So we weren't coming up with cash each time, but the principal would grow each time
Got it.
And then they would run it kind of like a construction loan where there would be draws and they would come out and make sure we were doing what we said we were going to do, not going to Vegas.
Yeah.
No,
so cool.
I love that. You know, it's interesting because people forget that you can do that. And I'm like, this is the beauty of real estate, right? This is how you compound. You're using other people's money to build wealth and create income, which you can leverage and then use to create more wealth and income. And there's so many ways to do it. Like you guys are, I mean, come on. You guys got 5 kids, right? You have lost your job. You had to go back to school. You're 3 states. You're figuring out the small facility and you're building them yourself. And you're 6+ hours away for most of this period of time. Like, this is the epitome of no excuse. Like, get it done. And I love that whole mentality. I mean, when we started out, we're talking, you know, we're in Pendleton, Oregon, IF, Bonners Ferry, Idaho. We were in, Hermiston, Oregon, right? Everyone listening to this podcast, like, I don't know anything you just said, right? So we're the only 2 people on the, you know, us having this podcast, we know where these places are, but they're out in the middle of nowhere, right? For the majority of these facilities. And they were all very small. And we had gravel. We couldn't figure out how to run them. So we went to local real estate shops and we're like, hey, what... Could you, if we paid you to clean a unit out, could you get it done? Because we're down in Boise, and then we'd find out that, geez, this thing hasn't been even hardly running for 6 months. We're not getting, then we have to go over there to fix it, right? And I think most people at this point, it's like, this is a hassle. Why am I doing this? Because it's not like we were getting rich off of it, right? We weren't. During that time, it's not like it was like, wow, this is just money bags. It wasn't until we gained the knowledge and could figure out how to really do it and start to scale that stuff really happened, right? Like you got to use it to build more buildings. You got to use it to grow. And then, you know, you did it really good because you talk about a discount on building your own buildings and everything. When I wanted to build, I was like, you know, we had to pay for architects and everything because I can't swing a hammer. But it's this idea that you figure it out because those are the things that make it so when you see the opportunity, right? So if you wouldn't have built your own buildings and everything, that guy down the road, you wouldn't have seen the opportunity with this other land. You wouldn't have got it. You wouldn't have said, we could do this, this, and this. So this may seem like a little higher end price to others, but to you, you're like, wait, this is not what it seems. There's actually a lot of intrinsic value in here that is not bedded into the price. And that is dynamic learning. And I love it. And that's why I love doing this podcast, because we get to talk to you guys and other people get to see. It wasn't like you just read a book and you went out and did it. It was messy. You had to figure it out. You had huge hardships in the middle of it. You're moving around and you just persevered and you came through it. I love these kind of discussions. Now, let's talk, where are your next steps? What are your plans? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to get enough just to stop? Are you looking to expand out of your region? What are you guys' thoughts?
Well, our initial goal was, and since we've been married, our goal is always to have financial freedom and to not be tied down to a 9-to-5 and to a W-2. So that was the house flipping, and then it turned into storage units, and then so now we're really close. I think we're really, really close to getting to that point, but it's still taking. I'm still working in real estate, and so we're just about there, but so maybe we need to ask you a few questions while we've got you, but we're just about there, but we're not quite sure how to take that next step. Our next fear, like we wrote down our fear, what's our next big fear? And scaling to a point where we need employees is that fear.
Yeah.
And we're not quite sure if we're ready for that. I would like to go ahead and push through that and see if we can make that work. But I don't want to end up like, am I going to go from managing storage units to spending all my time managing people?
Yeah.
And having the issues that go along with that. Yeah. So that's kind of our next thing. And how do we figure out where to do that at? We are very comfortable with our area, but there's a lot of buildings going up in Kalispell is about half an hour away, and a lot of buildings are going up in that town, although we've grown by about 30,000 people over the last 6 to 8 months. Everybody loves Montana now.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to decide what to do next.
Yeah, and we would like to build more in our area, but we're nervous about building and saturating our little market, right?
Yeah.
So it's nice having a good demand, and we don't want to mess that up by building more units right in our little radius here.
Right.
And so if we did do more, it's going to be either buying facilities, more local facilities in the valley, but outside of our little radius. So we've started approaching Kelly's.
Got an appointment on Tuesday to talk to
Yep. Yes. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're gonna have lunch and see if he's interested in selling his facility. So we're making inroads and trying that. But I guess we wonder, is it? I've heard you talk about, amount of units per capita or amount of square footage per capita, and if that's possible to figure out in a third tier market like kind of what we're in.
Yeah. So you know what? These are just I love hearing these questions. It's like I'm just like thinking back. It's like, oh man, I've been through these questions just endlessly. It's just you're bringing me back. So I think there's a few approaches, right? And there's a few things. Everything you're considering though is exactly right on. It's what you should be considering, and your concerns are the correct concerns. So when I look at third tier markets,